Welcome back, everybody, to another edition of Tailgate Talk here at sunjournal.com/SJVarsity. Kalle Oaks, Randy Whitehouse, Justin Pelletier coming at you from the palatial downtown Lewiston Sun Journal studios because it's raining outside. And unlike football players, we don't like to play in the rain.
They don't either.
Well, that's the ADs, that's not the players. Let's go to blame where it belongs. Class A this week, we're going to start with Coney at Mount Blue, probably one of the tighter matchups on our schedule this week. Coney Mount Blue is kind of a flip of a coin, pick 'em kind of weekend, isn't it, guys?
They're kind of mystery teams. Both Mount Blue with the 3-0 start has struggled lately against Lawrence and against Bangor, which you might expect stepping up in competition. Coney's had problems against greater competition too. Certainly with Dunkley at quarterback, they continue to be a team that's dangerous on offense. And Mount Blue's got to cut down on the turnovers. That's been the big problem for them the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, and they've got to find somebody to fill in the inside running game. Looks like Isaiah Tracy's probably out for the year with a hip injury, so that's a loss to their offense. And they struggled a little bit last week without him, obviously. Cam Senek brings big playability back there, but he's not that between the tackles runner that Tracy was. Jordan Whitney struggled throwing the football last week, made some bad decisions there, and the defense played its poorest game of the year by far. So they certainly need to bounce back this week. Dunkley presents a lot of problems from that quarterback spot, so it's not a heck of a lot easier in terms of their defensive game plan this week.
Bangor, meanwhile, speaking of Bangor, Bangor does travel down to Oxford Hills this week, and Oxford Hills thought they had some tough tests before. Look out.
Well, I mean, it's a nice chance for people around here to see the consensus #1 team in the state, I guess, if you want to put a happy face on it for that. And Oxford Hills has been working hard. Certainly defensively has been where they've been the strongest this year, and they're going to be tested harder, by a more difficult challenge than they've had to this point by anyone when they face Bangor.
The challenge made it a little bit less difficult because it looks like Josiah Hartley's not going to play. He suffered a concussion against the Cougars last week, but they still have plenty of weapons, starting with Joe Secaricia at quarterback. He had kind of an off game against Mount Blue last week. I don't know if it's because it was a windy day or whatever, but a lot of his throws were off target. He certainly has a number of receivers to go to, and guys who can break big plays other than Hartley. So it's certainly a Bangor team that's going to put up its share of points against the Vikings.
Edward Little goes up to Skowhegan this week. Edward Little coming off of a good performance last weekend, and this is another game where they can probably go out and get a win here.
Yeah, they're playing a team in Skowhegan that's kind of playing for its playoff life. They're 1-4. If they can somehow get a win, they're also a team that tends to improve as the season goes along. We've seen that trend the last few years. Edward Little's a team at 2-3 that could easily be 4-1. They've had a couple of frustrating losses. Certainly the Coney game comes to mind. They played very well against Lawrence, and they've played well against the better teams on their schedule. Brunswick, the 1-point loss. They're certainly in a position where they can continue this run going into the end of the season and probably wrap up a playoff spot.
And that offense really seemed to come to life last week when I got to see them on Saturday afternoon. They actually decided to have an offense. Big one this week here, guys. Lawrence at Lewiston, Randy.
Wow.
Yeah,
5-0 at 5-0.
That's arguably the game of the year so far in terms of Eastern Class A. The best offense scoring-wise in Lewiston against the best defense scoring-wise in Lawrence. Something's got to give, I guess. I haven't seen Lawrence yet. I don't know what kind of team speed they have overall, but I'm sure that
they're going to be challenged because Lewiston has the speed.
I saw them against Edward Little. The thing with Lawrence is you've got to score first if you're Lewiston, and you've got to not give them a short field. They're not an offensive juggernaut, but they are, even though they don't run the double wing, they have that kind of tendency to drain the clock and have long drives. Lewiston can't let them get the lead and do that.
And Lewiston, they've had a more dynamic offense these last few weeks. They've thrown the ball a lot more over the last few weeks.
Almost preparing themselves for something like this where they're going to have to
I think so. And they're healthy going into this game, too, so they have all those weapons that they can showcase. I think the concern still is with Lawrence whether they can run the ball up the gut on that Lewiston defense, which has been a bit of a problem.
Thank you, Randy. Thank you, Kalle. That's Class A for this week. I'm Justin Pelletier here at the Sun Journal Studios. Thanks for watching. Have a good week.